The previous generation Toyota bZ4X was average, bit of a weak sauce car, certainly looking at the standards that Toyota usually adheres to. But luckily Toyota wouldn't be Toyota if it wasn't keen on listening to feedback from customers, media and other people, and went back to the drawing board to address all those issues. My name is Peter, welcome to a new AutoConfig video, and despite the Scrabble tile naming of this car, it is a good Toyota car with a lot of nice Toyota technology underneath. So we're going to have a look together in this video to see if in 2026 this new version is up to par. We'll walk around the car first, even though there's not that much new on the outside. You can see the daytime running lights glowing here, and the headlights are down there for your main beams. The design itself is a bit pointy, as my 9-year-old mentioned. And I think that's true. If you look here on the front, it is a very sharp and angular design, where a lot of cars in this category have followed the original Model Y design and went for a more rounded shape. This certainly is angular. And Toyota does like form-following function, so this design is of course there to be as aerodynamic as possible for maximum efficiency. This corner here used to be sort of a matte gray plastic that didn't look very good, a bit cheap. This shiny version is supposed to look a bit more upmarket and chic. And it is the same trick that a lot of manufacturers use by making these wheel arches dark to make the car appear a lot more robust and sturdy than it actually is. They've done the same here in the rear. I'm not entirely sure about this two-tone design because they've done the same color here on the bonnet. Not too sure about that, but I think in general it's an okay looking car. It's not ugly, it's not that pretty either. Now when we walk around the car, you've probably spotted it already, the charging port is over here on the front left. And that is the wrong spot. I'm sure it's very convenient when you enter your own driveway, you can get out and plug the charger in right away on the left front. But most public charging situations these days, where it's normal charging or fast charging, do favor a charging port in the rear. And then the left or right doesn't really matter that much, but in general that is a bit easier. Now charging is an important thing with this car because we have the 73 kilowatt hour battery in this version. There's a smaller battery available as well, but more about versions later. On paper it only charges at 150 kilowatts, which is mediocre in this day and age. But that's not the whole story. Toyota does make a point in communicating that their charging curve is really good. So where the speed is not that high, the curve is good, where the charging speed stays high very long. Because a lot of car makers communicate a megazillion kilowatts of charging speed, but it's up and then straight back down. So that doesn't really help you. It is much more functional to keep that curve as flat and as high as possible for as long as possible. So that makes this car still go from 10 to 80% in under half an hour, which is very good in the real world and very usable as well. And it's actually something that a lot of my fellow journalists have done on video already. They say 150, but there's also plenty of videos out already where the car is charging well over 160 at its peak power. So that means Toyota's being modest and realistic about its numbers that it communicates, which is really nice and actually quite refreshing. Here on the back there's a few things to look at. First of all, there's the design itself, which I think is quite nice. It's simple, it's clean, and I think overall it's a good looking rear. So that is well done. Then there's the rear window, which is enormous, as you can see. It really is a large rear window. We've driven a few cars recently with just letterbox rear windows, which can be quite annoying to see through from within the car. Not the issue here at all. It's also not so flat, so you really have a lot of surface area to look through, which is great if you're using the regular mirror on the inside. What's not so great is that there's no windscreen wiper. That would normally sit here on the bottom or either be integrated in a spoiler, but neither is the case. There is no wiper at all. Toyota says, no problem, aerodynamically this car is fantastic and any droplet will just blow off when you're driving, which is nonsense, because when you're standing still in front of a traffic light, when there's slow moving traffic in a city, or when you just parked and you want to get going and there's rain or snow or anything on your window, you can't see anything. So that is garbage. A rear wiper is a necessity. What I'm also not too sure about is this split design of the rear spoiler. I understand that it helps aerodynamics and that, you shouldn't put on a car what is not necessary, but I don't think it looks particularly good in this sort of two-scoop design. I would rather have had a full width spoiler, and then I can also integrate that wiper. What is good though is the boot space. Let's open this up. Electric, so that is great. We have 450 liters of boot space with the rear seats up. And as you can see, it is a huge square opening with no load lip and a lot of volume inside, 450 liters like I said, which is not class leading or anything. There's certainly larger boots available in this category of cars, but it is very workable and very usable because it's such a big square opening. We do have a little bit of space under the false floor. There's enough space here for your charging cable that's actually over here right now, but also for your safety vests, tow eyes and all those things. So that's nice out of the way and gives you even more usable space back here. Obviously a little cockpit tour through this bZ4X, and it is a very Toyota interior, which is a good thing because Toyota does make nice interiors. And also one of the reasons why they can offer the warranty, for example, is because they know that everything is well put together. And it's true, it's a good cabin, it's a good place to be ergonomically, it's all very sound, and the quality of everything in here is good too. There's two things that stand out as soon as you get in. The first is the mix between analog and digital, because obviously we have the big 14-inch screen in the middle where you do most of the things with the car. But there's a lot of buttons here on the steering wheel. There's buttons for the windows, real buttons for the mirrors, real buttons for the trip computer, for example. So that's a really nice blend between having physical things to press and getting easy access to those things, and also the digital version where you can do a few things like turn off your driving aids, for example. So that's very nice. The other thing that stands out right away is I was reminded of the Toyota Prius as soon as I got in here, is that the steering wheel is rather small and the head-up display is not a real head-up display, but an actual display a bit further down the dashboard is quite far away. It's further away than it actually is. It seems further away because I can still just touch it like this, so it's not that far, but it makes the dashboard feel a lot deeper than it actually is. And I had the same feeling in the Toyota Prius. It's a little bit comparable to what Peugeot does with its iCockpit. So it's a smaller steering wheel and you sort of have to look over it to see the display, but it's not a head-up display that's projected on the window. So we'll get to that in a second on the driving experience as far as that goes. First things first though, I mentioned the buttons for the window and the mirror, so that's nice. There's also seat memory buttons down there, and that trip computer is operable here with buttons on the left of the steering wheel. So that's all there. The steering wheel itself is small and all the buttons are in the middle around the airbag. That does seem like a good idea because then you don't have that layout on the spokes and it gives you a bit more room for your thumbs especially. But they are on the bottom half of the steering wheel, and that means you have to sort of twist your hand down quite far because you can't naturally reach anything further down than sort of the top two buttons. And the other alternative is that you move your hands lower and then you can operate it that way. So for me, they should have been a bit more up. But it is very functional, and it's also nice that they are all real buttons. So there's nothing touchy swipey or capacitive going on here. Everything you see is real buttons. So that is fantastic. I've had this car for over a week now, and it's just so intuitive to just feel your way around the steering wheel without even having to really look at it. And especially not having to first look, then press, then see if your action did something, if you pressed it correctly, and then get on with things. Just, you know that you've pressed a button. It has no other ways of doing it. So it's really, really nice. Behind the steering wheel are two paddles for the regen braking. For me, a bit redundant because I don't use that. I turn it off completely. I like to roll and coast with the car. But if you do like a bit stronger braking force and also like to charge the battery a little bit, you can use those. And of course, they can be changed on the fly, so situation dependent, you can add more or less regen braking. Two stalks for the wipers on the right and for the blinkers and the lights on the left. Very traditional, very simple, just the way I like it. And the sensor bubble here on top of the steering wheel, which is quite sensitive. If you look out the side window a bit too much on the roundabout, for example, it already starts to complain. And the beeping is also quite intense, so that is certainly something you want to turn off. And it's odd because the Lexus we drove in a previous video had a similar system, I'm assuming, but that was not as aggressive as this one. So maybe different calibration or different software version, I don't know, but it stood out to me. Then over the steering wheel, that driver's display. The display itself is only this big, but it is in a housing this size, because on the display, of course, you see things like your speed, your cruise control, your range, the time, and so on. But all the warning lights, like the seatbelt sign and the parking brake, are on the side. And those are different colors because the side is like dark black and then the screen itself is a little grayish black. So you can really tell that it's only this size screen in a big housing. So that's not so chic, if you want to call it that way. And it really sort of shows constantly that it's only a tiny real screen. What's not tiny is the screen in the middle, 14 inches, and it's a nice mix between everything you do in the sort of top 2/3 of the screen. So your navigation, your music, your car, your settings, and so on. And then the bottom third is all things that are permanently there, like seat heating, steering wheel, climate control, and so on. These two dials here are to change the temperature, and even a real volume dial. So that's nice. It's a good mix between the two, where you can just do everything up here. The system is fast enough. It's nothing groundbreaking or anything, but it's reliable, it's predictable, it does everything you want to do. So that's great. And the screen itself is a good size too, where it's not, you know, constantly screaming for your attention, but it is always there when you need it. So that's a nice mix. We continue the analog theme with the air vents here, manually operated, great. Absolutely everything you want. The temperature has to be adjusted here, and the fan speed as well, but the direction and the flow can be adjusted here. That's the way it should be, and I shall not be convinced otherwise, because that is just easier, practical, more reliable, and works 100% of the time. Great, well done, Toyota. 2 wireless charging pads here, not ventilated by the way, so that's something to note. Encased in this sort of gunmetal gray plastic. It is hard plastic, that's fine, and it's not piano black, so that's even better. But it's not, I don't know, maybe not the prettiest material, but it's very workable. It doesn't get dirty, you don't see dust on it so much, and it doesn't shine in your eye when it's sunny outside. As far as I'm concerned, it's a good solution for materials here. Before we get to the buttons here, there is the gear selector, which is a big dial. You have to press it, and then you can turn it to drive or reverse. I'm not really sure why they went for this. It doesn't really look that nice. You know, a small stick would have been better, I think. It takes up quite a bit of room, so I don't know. It's not the prettiest solution, but I suppose it works. There's a bunch of buttons. We have the parking button, the auto hold button, and the camera button. So that's a direct button you can press to go to your camera view. Great. Really nice when you're maneuvering in tighter spaces, that you don't have to go to the menu first, look for where it is. No, just a button. Just so simple. There is a traction control off button that you'll probably never use. There's a snow button that you'll also probably never use. And there's an eco mode button that you might use when you want to eke out a bit more range out of the battery. And things like the climate control and stuff will be adjusted with that button as well. Underneath all this is some more storage that is lined with felt, so things don't rattle about too much. You can put your garage clicker there, keys, whatever it is that you're carrying. 2 cup holders here that are, you know, nicely tucked away between the center armrest and that center console. And the armrest itself can open 2 ways for all your storage. So that is good. There's no glove box, but there is infrared heating. So there's a pad here on where the glove box should be, and there's a pad here under the steering column that provide infrared heating, which is super nice. Instead of warming up the whole car first before it becomes comfortable, you get instant heating here directly on your legs. It's super nice. I don't know why more car manufacturers do it that way, because it's more efficient, you use less electricity, therefore you have more range, and it just makes you instantly comfortable inside the vehicle while the rest of the car is warming up. Another thing worth mentioning is the big mirrors on the side. It gives me a bit of Volkswagen Touareg vibes. Nice, square, big mirrors, so you have a good sense of what's going on around you. Really nice, much appreciated, and interesting, of course, that an electric car has aerodynamics at the front and center of its design to get maximum range, but they haven't made the mistake of putting tiny mirrors on, because that is just annoying. Really nice touch by Toyota that it is easy to look backwards, which I can also do through the car without any problems. But if there's passengers, I have a digital version in this specific trim. I also have a JBL audio system for my blistering techno beats, and everything is well. Nothing really to complain about here. I don't necessarily prefer this setup with the display far away and a smaller steering wheel, to be honest. I actually prefer to just look through my steering wheel and see the display there, but it hasn't really bothered me that much in the week that I've had this car now. Also heated windscreen, by the way, and heated wipers, so that is an extra for this trim line. Last but not least, the seats, I fit in them, which is always a thing for me because I am a big boy, especially in my back and shoulders, but I fit in this car quite nicely. Heated and cooled, of course, which is something you definitely want, because this is a very gray interior and it does get warm on sunny days, I can imagine, when this car is outside. We don't have a panoramic roof, as you might have noticed, so it is very gray in here, and it is not an issue here in the front, a little bit more in the rear, but it's okay. But I think if you go for a dark interior, you should always go for a panoramic roof, because it just adds so much more light and air to the cabin that way, that you'll always be happy that you ticked that option. Nothing really to complain about in here. Like I said, it all fits well together. Ergonomically, it's sound, and it's a quality interior from Toyota, I think. Of course, a little bit of driving in this bZ4X, and as usual, we start around my house in my neighborhood, where this car feels right at home. Both in sort of open roads like this, but also more tight spaces like a parking garage, this car is very easy to handle and maneuver. I mentioned the big side mirrors on the interior tour, and those really help getting a good perspective on where you are on the road with this car, which is really nice. I really appreciate a good view rearwards. The same goes for the mirror on the inside here. I have a good view through the car with the big window in the rear. And also the digital mirror is quite nice to work with. So all around you have a good view out. And if that's not enough, you have the camera button that you can hit for a 360 view around the car. And once you start maneuvering at very low speed, of course, like reversing camera and stuff will also help. So that's off to a good start. And it also helps that this is not an enormous vehicle. It's certainly not a Toyota Aygo, of course, to stay within the family. But it is a vehicle size that makes it easy to maneuver, and also a size where you can be confident in maneuvering this car around. Where when vehicles get larger than this, you constantly have the feeling like, oh, is it going to fit? Am I going to hit something? But this is a nice size vehicle where you don't have that penalty on the outside, despite all the room you have in here. So that's great, and I think that's a good all-round starting point for a vehicle like this, which is of course going to be a vehicle that has to do everything and anything from driving your family to ski holiday to taking your kids to swim class. And I think the size of the vehicle really lends itself for that, and it gives you the ease of use of a vehicle this size and also the usability of the space in here. Driving this car around for a week now, there's a few things that stand out. The first is the traction control. I'm not really sure what the deal is there, because it's currently 14 degrees, it's dry, it hasn't rained in days. We are on summer tires and it is a gorgeous day, and still the traction control is constantly coming on when you're only part throttle in a corner and things are spinning out of control in all directions. So that is a little bit annoying, and I'm not really sure what the deal is there, but okay. The second thing is that the driver's display can be a bit busy at times. There's a lot of information that sort of flows in and out of that display. I mean, of course, your speed and such are changing, but it can sometimes be a bit annoying that the information changes without you asking for it. So I'm sure you can turn that off somewhere deep in the menu or wherever, but still, it is something that stands out. It's also a very cautious car, and that can be good and bad. On the one hand, it's really good because on roundabouts, for example, or in parking lots, the car is very aware of what's happening around it and will warn you quite early, I have to say, that there's a traffic crossing or there's somebody behind you or there's something going on. And I do consider myself somebody who looks around a lot to see what's happening. But I noticed a few times that the systems are at least as fast as I am in noticing potential things happening. So that is pretty good and impressive, and of course improves the safety enormously. But at other times it is a bit overcautious. I was turning around in a street earlier, and there was like a bush somewhere on the side of the road, and the car was like, oh, panic, and full emergency stop braking and everything. So that can be a bit annoying at times, even though of course it's there to prevent you crashing into a pole in a parking garage. But yeah, not ideal. Sitting here in the rear, it's actually quite pleasant. There is pretty much the same quality as in the front, so you're not tucked away back here. And all the materials feel nice and solid as well. So that's great, it's off to a good start. We also have all the basics covered, from a seat pocket to a soft driver's seat back, USBs for charging, ventilation control, heated seats in this version as well, electric windows, of course, door bin, all is checked off. So that is great. It's a good place to be for a journey, long and short, I'd say. For kids back here, no issues whatsoever. Mine are 11 and 9 and they fit here without any issues. I am 1.83 meters tall and about 100 kilos, and I'm also relatively comfortable here. I can put my feet under the seat in front of me, and I can also move my feet across the entire width of the car while they're flat, because the middle tunnel doesn't protrude too far backwards, so that's great too. The only thing is that with a 1.83 meters, my hair is touching the roof at the moment. So, if you're 1.85, you can probably still sit here, but any taller will be problematic. But I think that is perfectly reasonable for a car in this category. No real complaints here. The fact that we don't have a panoramic roof in this version does mean there is less light back here. But overall, the rear windows are big enough that it doesn't feel claustrophobic here at all. And also the contact with the front of the car is easy because the seats are not so massive and also not so high. So I can see over the seat and around the seat without any problems. And there's a lot of information coming from the front. So all around, it is a pretty good place to be here. Obviously a little bit of highway driving as well, currently doing 100, and it is a very pleasant place to be. Also on the highway, this car feels quite well at home. It's relatively quiet in here. The bigger mirrors don't interfere with wind noise or anything. Of course, there's a little bit of tire noise in an EV that's sort of more noticeable, but that's with all EVs. And in general, it's a very pleasant driving experience with the comfortable seats, with the steering wheel heating, infrared heating, anything you want to make it nice and cozy in here, and all around a pleasant cruising experience. Cruising you can certainly do. If I look at my range, currently 44%, 163 kilometers left in the tank according to the computer. And considering we are still in March, I think that is pretty reasonable. Toyota has of course worked hard on the efficiency of this car and is also less conservative with giving you the range that is still available. In previous Toyotas, especially in this bZ4X, they were very cautious with a lot of sort of reserves in the tank, and not the case here anymore. It is now a lot more realistic on what you can actually do. And if you look at this car specifically, 73 kilowatt hours of battery. Without any issues, you'll be under 20 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, so that's easy. And if you're a little bit careful, you can go towards the 15 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometer mark, and that gives you a bit of an idea of the real world range that's possible when the temperature and the circumstances are ideal. And that's nice because that gives this car the option to be deployed as a real family alternative for a combustion car. Because of course there's plenty of space in here for a family. There's enough space in the boot to fit a small holiday in there, and you can of course even put a roof box on the roof to make that capacity even bigger. And with the range, it's realistic that you go on holiday with this car. And I think that's exactly what you want from a vehicle like this, because it makes it such a great all-rounder that you can use it for a holiday but still use it for the school run as well. Then pricing. This Toyota bZ4X already starts at 40,000 euros here in the Netherlands. For that money, you get the active limited edition with the small battery pack, 58 kilowatt hours. With that, you can do a WLTP range of 444 kilometers. One version up is the dynamic. That will set you back 46,000 here in the Netherlands. So that is a lot more money. But you get a lot more range at 568 kilometers from a 73 kilowatt hour battery. So you get the big battery pack. There is an all-wheel drive version available as well that will cost you about 50 kilometers of range, and it will set you back 48,000 euro. The executive that we're in will start at 51,000 and will give you 559 kilometers of range. Executive all-wheel drive, again 50 kilometers less, and will start at 53,000 here in the Netherlands. Sitting like this on the highway, by no means this is some kind of overtaking cannon. There's simply not enough performance available for that. But that performance, of course, in an EV comes at a price of range. And I think there is enough performance in this car for anything overtaking, merging, anything you do on a highway without any drama, but also without any issues. I haven't really had any circumstances this week where I was like, oh, this car feels completely out of place, or I don't have enough power to drive normally with traffic in any sort of normal circumstance. So I think that's good. I think Toyota found a good balance here between performance and range. And I also don't really think that people that are shopping in this space necessarily need 9,000 horsepower. I think the performance available is enough for most people and still give you a pleasant driving experience, with the added benefit that you also have a lot of range, because obviously a lot of horsepower costs a lot of electricity in an EV, and that will definitely hurt your range. So in general, I don't think there's anything to fundamentally complain about this car, and that's really good. That's a good accomplishment. There is something to choose in this category. I think if you look at the Chinese cars in this class, it's all very minimalistic, very technical. If you look at the Koreans, it's a bit more funky and modern. And I think this Toyota is a nice additional offering in terms of its analog operation with digital integration. And that's a nice mix, and I think it's something that a lot of people appreciate. You see it in the car industry as a trend too, that after all the capacitive nonsense and complete minimalism, a lot of brands are going back to real buttons and real tactile interaction with the car. And Toyota has always stuck to its guns. So that's nice. Good to see that Toyota is confident in the direction it's taking. But it is making upgrades like in the infotainment screen, for example, to make sure that the cars still stay up to date. So I think it's a nice mix here, and it really gives you something to choose in this category and in this budget class. There is quite a lot to pick. If we look within the Toyota family itself, there's also a lot to choose there. First thing that came to my mind was the Toyota Corolla Cross that we drove a couple of months ago. Very similar kind of offering in terms of space and size. But of course it's hybrid, so it's very different. And if you can't or don't want to drive a hybrid, this is an EV alternative, and vice versa. So there is also a lot to choose within the brand itself. But I think overall Toyota has done a good job with this updated bZ4X, where they have addressed the pain points of the previous one and make it a nice and pleasant, relaxing, grown-up car. And I think that's an accomplishment worth noting, that they went back to the drawing board and addressed all the issues that were there. I hope you enjoyed the video. Give it a thumbs up if that's the case. A sub to the channel is always appreciated as well, of course, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Cheers!